Here is the reason why Jannik Sinner may never catch up to Carlos Alcaraz again, if he doesn't up his game as soon as possible. The gap is 3,150 ranking points. That's the distance between Carlos Alcaraz at number 1 and Jannik Sinner at number 2. 6 months ago, it was less than 1,000 points. 3 months ago, around 1,500. Now it's over 3,000 and growing. But the ranking points aren't what should terrify Sinner. It's everything those points represent. Straight losses to Alcaraz. A small slump admission. Changing his game to try to match Alcaraz's versatility. And a psychological weight that's becoming harder to carry with every tournament. The question nobody wants to ask but everyone's thinking. What if this gap never closes? What if Sinner's best just isn't good enough to beat Alcaraz's best? What if we're watching the moment where one rivalry dies and one player's dominance becomes permanent? Let's start with the most recent evidence. Doha 2026. Alcaraz wins the tournament without dropping a set in the final, extending his perfect record to 12-0. Meanwhile, Sinner loses in the quarterfinals to Jakub Mensik, a 20-year-old ranked 16th in the world. Not a close loss. Not a bad luck loss. A straight sets defeat where Sinner never found his rhythm and never looked like the player who'd won 4 Grand Slams. That contrast, Alcaraz dominating everyone while Sinner struggles against players he should beat, is the story of early 2026. And it's not an anomaly. It's a continuation of a pattern that started in late 2025 and shows no signs of reversing. The head-to-head tells the brutal truth. Alcaraz has won their last 5 meetings. 5 straight. The most recent being the 2025 French Open final, where Alcaraz won in straight sets. Before that, Indian Wells. Before that, another tournament. Each loss chips away at Sinner's confidence. Each victory adds to Alcaraz's psychological edge. Sinner's last win over Alcaraz? The 2024 ATP Finals. Over a year ago. That's an eternity in tennis. And that win came when both players were relatively equal in form and confidence. Since then, Alcaraz has elevated. Sinner has stagnated or even regressed. The ranking points gap is accelerating because of how tennis points work. Alcaraz is adding points by winning tournaments. Sinner is losing points by failing to defend previous results. At the Australian Open, Sinner lost in the semi-finals, while Alcaraz won the tournament. That swing alone was massive. In Doha, Alcaraz won while Sinner lost in the quarters. Another swing. If this pattern continues, Alcaraz going deep or winning tournaments while Sinner exits early or loses to lower-ranked players, the gap could reach 5,000 points by mid-year. At that point, it's not just a gap. It's a chasm. Sinner would need Alcaraz to have a catastrophic slump while he himself goes on an unprecedented winning streak just to get close. The math becomes daunting when you project forward. Indian Wells and Miami are coming up, each worth 1,000 points to the winner. If Alcaraz wins both and Sinner loses early again, that's another 1,500 to 2,000 point swing. Then comes clay season where Alcaraz is historically dominant. Monte Carlo, Barcelona, Madrid, Rome, Roland Garros. If Alcaraz continues his clay court excellence and Sinner continues struggling, the gap could balloon to 6,000 to 7,000 points by June. At that level, Sinner would be closer to world number 3 than to world number 1. The psychological impact of being that far behind your primary rival, of seeing the gap widen every week despite your best efforts, is crushing. It changes how you approach tournaments, how you view yourself, how media and fans perceive you. The psychological dimension is what makes this potentially permanent. Because Sinner has openly admitted Alcaraz is in his head. Julian Benneteau said it explicitly. Alcaraz has gotten inside Sinner's head because Sinner is trying to evolve his game relative to Alcaraz. That's the kiss of death in sports psychology. When you stop playing your natural game and start trying to become someone else to beat a specific rival, you've already lost the mental battle. You're reacting instead of dictating. You're operating from fear rather than confidence. The historical precedent supports this concern. In tennis history, when one player establishes deep psychological dominance over another at the highest level, it rarely reverses completely. Nadal's dominance over Federer on clay was never truly overcome. Djokovic's mastery over Nadal in finals persisted throughout their careers despite Nadal being the better overall clay court player. Once that mental edge is established, it becomes self-reinforcing. Sinner's small slump admission confirms this. He's acknowledged he's not playing well. He's identified the problem as partly physical, partly tactical. But he hasn't identified the core issue. He doesn't believe his current game can beat Alcaraz. So he's changing. And that change is making him worse against everyone, not just Alcaraz. The danger of changing your game to beat a specific rival is that you lose your identity. Sinner's identity has always been clean ball striking, taking the ball early, dictating tempo from the baseline. That's what got him to 4 Grand Slams. That's what made him world number 1. But now, trying to add drop shots, more net play, more variety, he's diluting what made him special without yet mastering the new elements. The tactical evolution Sinner is attempting is risky. He's trying to add variety, creativity, net play, all the things Alcaraz does naturally. But those skills take years to develop. Alcaraz has been playing that way since junior tennis. Sinner is trying to add them at 23 while maintaining his tour schedule and competing at the highest level. That's incredibly difficult and usually unsuccessful. The comparison to other players who tried to change their games to beat dominant rivals is instructive. Many tried and failed. They lost their edge against everyone else, while still not solving their rival problem. Sinner risks the same fate, becoming a worse version of himself, while still unable to beat Alcaraz. The physical aspect compounds the problem. Sinner's game is built on taking the ball early, hitting flat and hard, and dictating from the baseline. That's physically demanding, but it worked when he was confident and fit. Now, dealing with the mental weight of losing to Alcaraz repeatedly, the physical demands feel heavier. The recovery between matches is harder. The energy required to maintain his baseline power for 3 hours is greater. Meanwhile, Alcaraz seems to be getting physically stronger. His serve has improved dramatically. 82% first serves, 89% first serve points, won in recent matches. His court coverage remains elite. His ability to sustain peak performance for 5-hour matches was proven against Zverev. Every dimension of his physical game is at or near peak, while Sinner is dealing with fatigue and form issues. The serve statistics tell a revealing story. Alcaraz's new serve motion has added 5 to 8 miles per hour to his average first serve speed. He's getting more free points, more cheap holds, more pressure-free service games. Sinner's serve, while solid, hasn't evolved. It's the same reliable weapon it's always been, but it's not improving while Alcaraz's is. That gap matters in close matches. The injury history is also concerning for Sinner's long-term prospects. He's dealing with the physical toll of his aggressive baseline style. Hip issues, wrist problems, various minor ailments that accumulate. Alcaraz has had injuries too, but he's managing them better, and his playing style, more variety, more net play, might be more sustainable long-term than Sinner's pure power approach. The Grand Slam comparison is stark. Alcaraz has 7 majors at 22. Sinner has 4 at 23. That 3-major gap is significant, but what's more significant is the trajectory. Alcaraz is adding majors rapidly. He won 3 in 2024 alone. Sinner won 2 in 2024, but hasn't won 1 since. If Alcaraz maintains his pace and wins 2 to 3 majors per year, while Sinner wins 0 or 1, the gap becomes insurmountable within a few years. By 2028, Alcaraz could have 13 to 15 Grand Slams at age 24 to 25. Sinner might have 6 to 7. At that point, even if Sinner experiences a late career resurgence, closing an 8 to 9 major gap is virtually impossible. The historical precedent shows that players who fall that far behind in the major count during their primes never catch up. The surface versatility advantage heavily favors Alcaraz. He's won on all surfaces, hard courts, clay, grass. He's completed the career Grand Slam. Sinner hasn't won on grass, or clay, yet at the major level. His Australian Open titles are impressive, but he's more limited in where he can win. That surface versatility means Alcaraz has 4 opportunities per year to extend his major count, while Sinner realistically has 2, Australian Open and US Open on hard courts. Roland Garros remains Sinner's nightmare. 2 finals, 2 losses to Alcaraz. The 2025 final, where he saved 3 match points only to lose, is the kind of defeat that haunts players for years. Can he go back there and win? Against Alcaraz, who's already won it twice and owns that court? The psychological barrier is enormous. The mental toughness in crucial moments is another area where Alcaraz has shown superiority. Against Zverev at the Australian Open, Alcaraz came back from being down and won from 5 to 4 against himself. Against Rublev in Doha, he saved 6 match points. These are the moments that define champions. Alcaraz consistently finds ways to win from impossible positions. Sinner's record in 5-set marathons tells a different story. He's 0-9 in matches lasting over 3 hours and 50 minutes. 0 wins, 9 losses. When matches extend to their absolute limit, Sinner hasn't proven he can close. That's partly physical, partly mental. But it's a pattern that's becoming a defining characteristic, rather than just bad luck. The clutch gene comparison is damning. In matches where both players face match points or extreme pressure, Alcaraz thrives while Sinner wilts. That's not an insult. It's an observation backed by data. And it suggests that in future high-stakes encounters, betting against Alcaraz would be foolish regardless of how the match is going. The coaching situation is also interesting. Alcaraz has Samuel Lopez, who's helped him evolve his game while maintaining his natural creativity and aggression. Sinner has Darren Cahill and Simone Vagnozzi, both excellent coaches. But even great coaching can't fix a player's head when a rival has established psychological dominance. The question becomes, what could Cahill and Vagnozzi do differently? They're already world-class coaches with proven track records. They've helped Sinner win 4 majors. But they haven't found the answer to the Alcaraz problem. And if 2 of the best coaches in tennis can't solve it after a year of trying, maybe it's not solvable. The commercial and media narrative compounds Sinner's challenge. Every article about Alcaraz frames him as historic, potentially the greatest ever, completing the career Grand Slam at 22. Every article about Sinner is about his slump, his losses, his struggles to compete with Alcaraz. That narrative affects confidence, affects how sponsors view you, affects how you see yourself. Sponsorship deals reflect perceived market value. Alcaraz's endorsement portfolio is expanding rapidly. Luxury brands, global campaigns, premium partnerships. Sinner has strong sponsorships too, but the gap is widening as Alcaraz's star rises and Sinner's struggles continue. That financial disparity reinforces the hierarchy. The age factor is minimal. Sinner is only 13 months older than Alcaraz. But in tennis terms, Alcaraz's development is years ahead. He's more complete, more versatile, more mentally mature. Sinner would need to make up that developmental gap, while Alcaraz continues improving. That's nearly impossible. The rival emergence is another factor. Right now, it's Alcaraz and Sinner at the top. But what happens when the next generation emerges? Players like Arthur Fils, Holger Rune, others who are 19 to 21 right now. If they reach elite level in 2 to 3 years, Sinner will be fighting on multiple fronts, trying to catch Alcaraz while also defending his position against younger players. That's a difficult battle to win. The statistical trends all point in one direction. Alcaraz's win percentage is increasing. His finals appearance rate is historically high, 12 finals in 13 tournaments. His winning streak on outdoor hard courts is at 30 matches. Every metric of dominance is trending up. Sinner's metrics are trending down or staying flat. Win percentage down. Ranking points down. Finals appearances down. Head-to-head against top opponents down. When all the trend lines point in opposite directions, reversing that requires a massive intervention, new coaching, complete game overhaul, extended break to reset, or some external factor that changes the dynamic. Sinner doesn't seem to be pursuing any of those options. He's trying to evolve within his current system, which hasn't worked so far. The question isn't whether Sinner is a great player. He is. 4 Grand Slams by 23 is exceptional. He'll probably win more majors in his career. He'll probably finish his career as a Hall of Famer with 6 to 8 majors. But will he ever be number 1 again? Will he ever establish himself as Alcaraz's equal? The evidence increasingly suggests no. This isn't about Sinner failing. It's about Alcaraz being historically great, operating at a level that's ahead of even where the big 3 were at his age. Sinner's best is excellent. Alcaraz's best is transcendent. And when transcendent meets excellent, transcendent wins. Every time. The sad reality for Sinner is that doing everything right might not be enough. He's working hard. He's improving technically. He's got world-class coaching and support. But Alcaraz is also working hard, also improving, also has elite support. And Alcaraz started from a higher baseline of talent and has developed faster. The window for Sinner to catch up is closing. Every month that passes with Alcaraz winning and Sinner struggling makes the comeback harder. The psychological weight gets heavier. The ranking gap gets wider. The narrative becomes more entrenched. At some point, maybe we're already there, it becomes permanent. That's the uncomfortable truth tennis fans need to consider. This rivalry everyone thought would define the next decade might already be over. Not because Sinner stopped being great, but because Alcaraz is operating at a level Sinner can't reach. And once that gap becomes psychological, as well as technical and physical, it rarely closes. Sinner may never catch Alcaraz again. Not because he's not good enough to be world number 2, but because Alcaraz is too good to be caught by anyone except Father Time and injuries. And at 22, Father Time is nowhere close. Which means Sinner's window might have already closed before he realized it was closing. So, what are your thoughts on this? Can Sinner still close this gap? Or is Alcaraz's lead already permanent? What would it take for Sinner to get back to competing on equal terms? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more analysis of the rivalry that might be ending before it really began. See you in the next one.